Our selection today will be Stand By Me. When the storms of life are raging, stand by me.
The oracles of the UCI, 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. But the end of all things is at hand. Be you therefore sober, and watch unto prayer. And above all things have fervent love among yourselves, for love shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man has received the gift, even so minister the same one to another as good stewards of the manifold grace of Elohim. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of Elohim. If any man minister, let him do it as of the ability which Elohim gives, that Elohim in all things may be glorified through Yahshua the Mashiach, to whom be praise and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 29 through chapter 5 and verse 4. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. Excuse me. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of Elohim, whereby you are sealed until the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be you kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as Elohim for Yahshua's sake has forgiven you. Be you therefore followers of Elohim, as dear children, and walk in love, as the Mashiach also have loved us, and has given himself for us an offering and sacrifice to Elohim for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as become saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather giving of thanks. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Keep your foot when you go to the house of Elohim, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with your mouth, and let not your heart be hasty to utter anything before Elohim. For Elohim is in heaven, and you upon earth, therefore let your words be few. Exodus chapter 23, verses 20 and 21. Behold, I send an angel before you, to keep you in the way, and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. Revelations chapter 3, verses 20 through 22. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I have also overcame and am sat down with my Father in his throne. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches.
All right, Shabbat Shalom,
Shabbat shalom.
which is peace on Yahweh's holy Sabbath day. Welcome to another holy convocation that Yahweh has enjoined unto us here in Stone Mountain, Georgia. As we get into today's sermon, I ended up getting a question from Brother Benea in North Carolina, and it was a question about the second Passover. And as I started dealing with it, it started turning into more of a whole thing that it was just so much that I ended up wanting to say. To that brother, that it was a pause in his email. That's because it just kept going. Everything I kept trying to work on or whatever, it wasn't just coming into. I mean, I could have, there's a short answer, and then there's the rest of the stuff that goes after that. So here is all of it that goes with that. And I think the powerful thing about us asking questions is what ends up happening is a lot of times there are people who thought they already had some other stuff together, and then once you start talking, they realize, oh, wait a minute, I didn't have that, or I didn't have this. So you begin to understand how powerful the questions are, and then of course asking the questions to the right individuals, because a lot of times we like to go and ask our friends, and they barely know more than you, if they even know more than you. So then you start to ask people questions who really don't have an ability to answer that. I'm not going to go to my dentist and ask him about, rebuilding my car engine. That's not what he does. So it doesn't make sense for me to go and try to deal with some things from an area where that's not what they do. So we're going to begin today's sermon in Numbers chapter 9. And we're dealing with the second Passover, but it really fits into our opening song was Stand By Me. And when you deal with the second Passover, it is really more than just a second opportunity to keep the Passover. What it is it is a part of showing Yahweh's grace in case you were not able to do something the first time. Now, when you deal with something as far as a woman, that's not something that she has done. If she's unclean or something like that, for a man, that was a particular event that kept him unclean. And he then has another opportunity to come and rectify that situation, which is grace on Yahweh's part. And it is grace already there way before any New Testament has been introduced. Go ahead, brother.
Numbers chapter 9 and verse 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe in the wilderness of Sinai in the first month of the second year after they were come out of the land of Egypt, saying, Let the children of Israel also keep the Passover at his appointed season. In the 14th day of this month, at even, you shall keep it in his appointed season.
Right, and the 14th day of the first month is when the Passover is to be kept, and it must be kept in its appointed season. So there is some order connected to how these things are supposed to be done. There is a way that these things are supposed to be done, and he's saying, make sure that you keep it at the time that you were appointed to keep it. So be on time when it comes down to dealing with the things of Yahweh. And that's the thing that we struggle with the most. We time ain't good for us. We late for everything. We be late for our own funeral. Everybody there, the body outside. The body ain't even made it into the funeral yet. People in there trying to cry, but they want the body. They can't even cry right. Right, because we late for everything. The first thing, he is on a very particular. It is an appointed time, an appointed season. Make sure you do it the way you have been instructed. And if you do it late, you didn't do it the way it was instructed. Go ahead.
According to all the rites of it, and according to all the ceremonies thereof, shall you keep it. And Moshe spake unto the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover. And they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month at even in the wilderness of Sinai. According to all that Yahweh commanded Moshe, so did the children of Israel. And there were certain men who were defiled by the dead body of a man, that they could not keep the Passover on that day. And they came before Moshe and before Aaron on that day.
Now, sometimes situation and circumstances present themselves so that other things can be dealt with. It was just like the situation about the daughters of Zelophehad. There was no ordinance written as to what would have happened with a man's land if he didn't have any sons. There was absolutely nothing written. So those women had to then approach the leadership and say, hey, what's going to happen with our father's land? He doesn't have any sons. What's going to be done for us? So then amendments had to be made to the law so that there would be an amendment that would take care of this particular situation. So then now you have a situation that has presented itself, and then something is going to have to be done for that. Go ahead.
Numbers chapter 9 and verse 7. And those men said unto him, We are defiled by the dead body of a man. Wherefore are we kept back?
Right, because this is not something that they had power over. If this is something that they have to do, if this is a job, because if you got a kingdom, there is a job for everybody. There is something, somebody got to take out the trash, somebody got to bury the dead bodies, somebody has to do all of that work. And you just can't say, look at man, we got something to do, so make sure don't nobody die on Wednesday. That's not how that works. Okay? That's that you're not in control of that. So when certain things present themselves, you have to be able to move with it. Go ahead.
That we may not offer an offering of Yahweh in his appointed season among the children of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And Moshe said unto them, stand still, and I'll hear what Yahweh will command concerning you.
See, this is one of the things that you have to do when you are presented with something. Moshe, most powerful man they've ever seen. Okay? Divide the waters. Glow. But when he got to something he ain't know, he ain't try to answer. That's why this question was a week ago. This is how sometimes people get themselves in trouble. Folk answer a question and they start talking immediately. Well, what I think, stop. Wait for a minute. Say, you know what? I'll get back with you. This might take me a week. I'll get back with you. But see, that pride started talking right away. Let's talk. Let's answer. Right. And then you end up putting your whole foot in your mouth. And then Yahweh answer the question for you 2 weeks later or 2 days later. Might be 2 hours later. Now, are you going to go back to that place where you end up putting your foot in your mouth and go and fix that? That's already off. And he turned the speakers off up top. Go ahead, bro.
Verse 9. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if any man of you or of your posterity shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey afar off.
Or be in a journey afar off. Now, they didn't have, mass transit the way we have mass transit. So, if they're in a journey, it takes a minute for them to travel. So when it gets down to certain times of the year that they have holy days and things of that nature, they wouldn't travel unless they didn't have a choice. Go ahead.
Yet he shall keep the Passover unto Yahweh. The 14th day of the 2nd month at even, they shall keep it, and eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs.
Right. You do it the way you were going to do the other one, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to do this on the 2nd month because you were unclean through no fault of your own, through a situation that happened, but you better make sure that situation don't happen again the next month. And I tell you, if I was unclean by the dead body on 1 month, if somebody even died in the room, I'm out. So you ain't gonna help us? No, somebody better get the dead guy. I already missed the first one. I can't miss this one. So somebody gonna have to come and deal with him. Done deal. And if anybody understand the word, then they understand why that is that important unto you. And if they don't, they'll be all right. Go ahead.
They shall leave none of it unto the morning, nor break any bone of it. According to all the ordinance of the Passover, they shall keep it. But the man that is clean and is not in a journey and forbears to keep the Passover, even the same soul shall be cut off from among his people.
Right. See, a lot of times we do things and there are repercussions to it, but we act like we don't know why those things happen. The man that is clean, he not in a journey. He just wanted to do something else. It was just convenient for him to be somewhere else and do some other stuff. So I ain't really got time to really deal with Yahweh stuff right now. But there's consequences that come behind that. Now, are you going to even be spiritually astute enough to recognize the consequences? When you end up being cut off from among Yahweh's people, will you know why? See, sometimes people think they left on their own or they went their own way. Or I'm just going to stop dealing with the word. They don't realize they've been cut off from among Yahweh's people. Some of them think they made the decision on their own. Yahweh made the decision because of something else that they've done. And they got cut off. Go ahead.
Because he brought not the offering of Yahweh in his appointed season, that man shall bear his sin. And if a stranger shall sojourn among you, and will keep the Passover unto Yah, according to the ordinance of the Passover, and according to the manner thereof, so shall he do. You shall have one ordinance, both for the stranger and for him that was born in the land.
Now, I need you to pay particular attention to, it said, and if the stranger shall sojourn among you, and will keep the Passover unto Yahweh, according to the ordinance of the Passover. Now, you have the Passover that was given amongst Yahweh, given from Yahweh. This is a part of our law. The ordinance gives you the understanding on how to keep it. So when you start reading things about ordinances, a lot of times people throw that all in with the law, but it's a lesser part of it, because there's one thing that says, remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. But then there's ordinances that tell you, how do you keep the Sabbath holy? There's a law that tell you to keep the Passover. But then there are ordinances that instruct you on how to keep the Passover. See, the other parts are the ordinances that instruct you about the law. Because the law in itself is not just keep this. Okay, well, how you do it? You can't just give a law without giving some kind of explanation that accompanies that. Go ahead.
You know, that goes back right back to when you were a child and you ask a question and they say, because I said so.
Yeah. Well, if they children, that is the ordinance right there. And children don't get to ask why. That's why, because. There go your answer right there. Go ahead.
Verse 15. And on the day that the tabernacle was reared up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, namely the tent of the testimony. And at even there was upon the tabernacle as it were the appearance of fire until the morning.
And this is part of the reason, as you get deeper into the word, it says the Greeks seek after wisdom. Israel looked for a sign. Some of the very things that was given to us as a plus end up being a minus later on. Because we're able to see the cloud and the fire. Later on, we have the least amount of faith than all the rest of the nations. Why? Because we were used to seeing it. See, we got accustomed to it. Well, show me the spirit. So I want to see it move. Show me the cloud. Show me the fire. Let me see it. So now we got accustomed to it. We got the least faith in everybody. Everybody else able to hear Yahweh's word. Yahweh said, if I had went to the strangers, they would have heard me. But I went to my own people, and they the ones that asked me the most questionable stuff. Right. Go ahead.
So it was always. The cloud covered it by day, and the appearance of fire by night. And when the cloud was taken up from the tabernacle, then after that the children of Israel journeyed. And in the place where the cloud abode, there the children of Israel pitched their tents. At the commandment of Yah, the children of Israel journeyed, and at the commandment of Yah, they pitched. As long as the cloud abode upon the tabernacle, they rested in their tents.
Can you imagine being the husband or the head of a house and telling your wife that we got to move after this? So she done seen the cloud and the fire. And then you trying to go somewhere and she's, well, how we know this is what we supposed to be doing? What a fire. So now they may want cloud and fire for everything. Well, I just need to go down here. What a fire. Man, you think the spirit gonna show up every time you need to do something? Go ahead.
And when the cloud tarried long upon the tabernacle many days, then the children of Israel kept the charge of Yah and journeyed not. So it was, when the cloud was a few days upon the tabernacle, according to the commandment of Yah, they abode in their tents, and according to the commandment of Yah, they journeyed. And so it was, when the cloud abode from even on to the morning, and that the cloud was taken up in the morning, then they journeyed. Whether it was by day or by night that the cloud was taken up, they journeyed.
Right. So the cloud moving was the commandment of Yah. He's not going to keep talking to you, telling you the same stuff over and over. He's going to give you the instruction. This is the instruction. You see it move, move. Ain't nobody got time to keep talking to you. But you know, this is how that Sunday morning dogma grabbed us. I talked to God last night. Why you had to talk to him over and over about the same stuff? And he didn't at all get pissed off with you that he keeps saying the same thing? But see, that attracts us. I talked to God last night. Why do I need to talk to him for him to tell me the same stuff that's in him? Matter of fact, at some point he gonna wonder, hey man, and you read that book, I love you. Why you keep asking me the same stuff? Consider if your children keep coming to you asking you the same stuff that you done already told them. Okay, how you turn the TV on again? Okay, how you use the remote again? Okay, we want these things at the volume. You know what? I'm going to hit you. You know, because you starting to get on my last nerve. Right. He gave us instructions. We don't get to just keep running back. Because at that point, it is not just annoying unto him. It is that you have zero dedication in dealing with his word. We're not talking about a situation of, hey, I saw something in the scripture that I had a question with. No. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this is the law. And consider, our people had to gather together every 7 years and read this. So when people start coming up acting like they don't understand the culture, by the time they get 21, they on their third time going all the way through the law. And they've kept all of these things growing up. Where's the confusion? Go ahead.
You know, even with this verse 21, it goes to show that your own convenience don't mean nothing. Because imagine it said if the cloud moved at night, you needed to move. This could be in the dead darkest of night and the clouds start moving. Oh man, I'm tired, I'm sleepy. You better get up and move.
Man, you know, and that's our thing. You know, we think everything is about our convenience. They could have been in the midst of building something else, and it was halfway built. And then that cloud started moving. Knock it down. And some of us, that's the only discouragement we need. We ain't never gonna build that thing again.
No, I tried to build it once and then that cloud moved. I ain't never gonna build this again.
This is about when Yahweh wants the children of Israel to move. And just like you said, brother, I had for a little while I drove a truck, and I was doing air freight, and it was that same thing. I might have not had a job for about 3-4 days. I'm getting ready to lay down, and there was a couple times my head hit the pillow, and then the phone rang. You got a route going from here to Connecticut. It's gonna pay you everything you ain't made all week. You got 15 minutes to make your decision.
I don't need but one. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Gotta go, baby. Gotta go. Ain't no decision. I ain't worked all week. This finna take care of everything that I haven't made. Let's go. And some of them trips was the longest trips ever because I was sleeping when I started the 15-hour drive. So I had to drive 2 hours, get some coffee, slap myself, sleep for about 15-20 minutes, back on the road. Hey, power naps is a powerful thing. Drive for a couple hours, power nap. Drive for a couple more hours. I might take about 10 naps before I got there. But I got there. But that was on all I had, 15 minutes to tell us whether or not you're going to take this route. It wasn't no decision. So what I find amazing is the things that we will do for a carnal job. And when it comes down to the things of the spirit, we have so many limitations. Oh, I ain't going to do this. Oh, I'm not going to do that. I will not sacrifice this. I will not sacrifice that. The job call us.
Oh, we're not wearing the tan uniforms no more, the blue ones? Okay, can you get mine an extra large? I need a little bit more room.
No thought. No thought whatsoever. Let it be for the word. And watch what we do for the greatest gift that we can ever have. Salvation. There's absolutely nothing more important than that. There's absolutely nothing more valuable than that. There's nothing you're going to find on this earth more valuable than your salvation. if it's anything that you ought to go all out for, it's that. Go ahead, bro.
Verse 22. Or whether it were 2 days, or a month, or a year, that the cloud tarried upon the tabernacle, remaining thereon, the children of Israel abode in their tents, and journeyed not. But when it was taken up, they journeyed.
Now consider, they don't know if it's going to be 2 days, or 2 weeks, or 2 months, or a full year. See, the uncertainty in that is a part of faith building. But most of the times we want to have exactly when these things are going to happen, and he's not telling you when you're going to move. There ain't no warning when you're going to move. You just have to have it in your head and in your heart. When the Spirit moves, I move. Now, this is going to get even more interesting as we talk about this upcoming thing that Israel is going to have to do in being relocated from the daughter of Babylon, and eventually all of the places scattered all over the earth. We're going to have to move with the Spirit, but this time we're not going to see a cloud. Oh, it's about to get interesting. Go ahead.
And the commandment of Yah, at the commandment of Yah, they rested in the tents. And at the commandment of Yah, they journeyed. They kept the charge of Yahweh at the commandment of Yah by the hand of Moshe.
All right, let's go to Numbers chapter 19. Numbers chapter 19, and we're going to read verses 1 through 22.
Verse 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe and unto Aaron, saying, This is the ordinance of the law which Yahweh has commanded, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, that they bring you a red heifer without spot, wherein is no blemish, and upon which never came yoke.
All right, this is the ordinance of the law. So this is one of the things that you're going to need to do to keep certain parts of the law. This is an ordinance of the law which Yahweh has commanded. So for this thing, for something else to be handled correctly, you're going to have to deal with this ordinance. And you have to pay particular attention to that, because later on in the book, people will start using ordinances and saying, now the whole law is done away with. Go ahead.
You know, even like you're saying, the ordinance and the law at this point is animal sacrifice. The ordinance is how you dealing with this specific sacrifice.
And not only that, now when you talk about the sacrifice, you can't bring the sacrifice if you are in a certain state. So now there are ordinances all the way down. Okay, there's an ordinance about how you deal with the sacrifice. There's an ordinance for how you deal if you were unclean trying to do the sacrifice. These are all the ordinances which are the instructions on how you keep that law. Go ahead.
And you shall give her unto Eleazar the priest, that he may bring her forth without the camp, and one shall slay her before his face. And Eleazar the priest shall take of her blood with his finger, and sprinkle of her blood directly before the tabernacle of the congregation 7 times. And one shall burn the heifer in his sight. Her skin and her flesh and her blood with her dung shall he burn. And the priest shall take cedar wood and hyssop and scarlet, and cast it into the midst of the burning of the heifer. Then the priest shall wash his clothes, and he shall bathe his flesh in water, and afterward he shall come into the camp, and the priest shall be unclean until the even.
Right. So all of these people who try to read the New Testament and they take out of context the part where it says they're not 12 hours in a day, and they try to tell you that day starts in the daylight. When you get down into every one of these ordinances, the state doesn't change with the person until sundown. That's even. So if the new day began when the sun came up, that would be the point at which you were clean. You see? So this is how you can back up and take that, that daytime doctrine and throw it out the window. Because if that daytime doctrine was right, every time you go through one of these ordinances and they change state from clean or from unclean to clean, then that is what would be here. When the sun come up, he's clean. It says he's unclean until even. So when the sun went down, that day changed state. It was a new day. That individual was now deemed clean. And us not wanting to go back, because, this stuff is tedious. We don't want to hear nothing. This is how those smooth talking people come with a new doctrine and have us howling at the moon somewhere. Because they come with this new fancy stuff. No, back up. Because if that stuff, if what you're saying is true, I should be able to read over and over. When the sun come up, he's clean. When the sun come up, he's clean. That's not what I read. Every one of these I come across. And he shall be unclean until even. She shall be unclean until even. That's when it changed states. Why do you think we never do a holy day in the daytime? We never start until sundown. There's a reason for that. Go ahead, bro.
Even when you deal with the beginning of creation, there was darkness was on the face of the deep.
Right.
The first thing that was created was the light.
Mm-hmm.
It came after.
Right.
After the darkness.
After the darkness, everything. He said, "Let there be light." But man, if you get into this, I promise you, just even having this conversation, I'm finna have about 10 emails from all the flat earthers, all the Enochians. They finna wear my email out today on this stuff right here. And at the end of the day, if you spend too much time dealing with it, man, it's not a salvation issue. So what, man? You want to believe that the earth is flat? Keep going till you fall off of it. Just leave me alone. But I'm not finna sit here and talk to you for a month about it. Because believe you me, they'll send the emails, then they'll pause for a little minute, and 2 weeks later, we get 52 more emails. Man, I ain't finna keep talking about that. Because don't get it twisted. They'll spam you to death because they all together. So they pause and keep coming at you with the same stuff. And if the stuff is not salvation issues, don't decide how much time you're going to spend with it and then leave it there. Go ahead.
Bro, just to touch back on the ordinances, and if you're if you're not really paying attention to this, you'll think that Eleazar is the one that's doing all this stuff. But within there, it's showing you that there's other people that have other jobs. Mm-hmm. Because it says, you shall give her unto Eleazar the priest, and he shall take it outside the camp. And it says, and one shall slay her before his face. Mm-hmm. So he's not the one slaying the heifer. And then later on it goes down again.
Yeah, you're going to read all kind of different people having to do these different jobs here. So it's definitely not just one individual doing this, but what happened is sometimes, we want to do stuff ourselves. So we just going to wing it. Go ahead.
Verse 8. And he that burns her shall wash his clothes in water, and bathe his flesh in water, and shall be unclean until the even. Mm-hmm. And a man that is clean shall gather up the ashes of the heifer.
So then it's got to be somebody else. Because, the dude who just did that other part was unclean. Now the dude who did the other part before that is unclean. So now a man that is clean. So this somebody else altogether different. Go ahead.
And lay them up without the camp in a clean place. And it shall be kept for the congregation of the children of Israel for a water of separation. Mm-hmm. It is a purification for sin.
Uh-huh.
And he that gathers the ashes of the heifer shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the even.
So now once he did that, now he unclean. So at either one of those steps, if the one person does 2 steps, the whole thing is defiled. Check that out. Because once he did his part, he unclean. Now he got to go wash himself, go sit down. Now somebody else come, take that. You got to look at it like a relay race. You go, you pass the baton, all right, now you go wash yourself. All right, you go, you pass the baton, all right, now you go wash yourself. All right, you go, and you get to the next one, you pass the baton, go sit down and wash yourself. If you went to the second part, you now have defiled everything that now comes behind that. Go ahead.
And it shall be unto the children of Israel and unto the stranger that sojourns among them for a statute forever.
Now, a lot of people don't understand the importance of this because they think that sacrifices have been done away forever. I don't think we understand that Yeshua not going to die again for your sins when we get up, when he, comes back. So you do understand that we're going to have to do sacrifices again, right? I don't think everybody really understand that. He's not going to die again for you.
Man, Keisha done did something. Let me go die.
No! He's not finna die again for you. No, you finna have to go pick your animal out for your sin. Go ahead.
He that touches the dead body of any man shall be unclean 7 days. He shall purify himself with it on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day he shall be clean. But if he purify not himself the 3rd day, then the 7th day he shall not be clean. Whosoever touches the dead body of any man that is dead, and purifies not himself, defileth the tabernacle of Yah, and that soul shall be cut off from Israel.
Whosoever touches the dead body of a man that is dead and purifies not himself defiles the tabernacle of Yahweh, and that soul shall be cut off. So when you deal with what got us in most of the time the biggest problem with Yahweh, it's about how we dealt with holy things. We end up taking holy things as if they're regular. And this ends up getting us in trouble with Yahweh Elohim every time. This is why he separated us from the tabernacle. He said, if I leave it among them, I'm going to have to kill you. Go ahead.
Because the water of separation was not sprinkled upon him, he shall be unclean. His uncleanness is yet upon him. This is the law. When a man dies in a tent, all that come into the tent and all that is in the tent shall be unclean 7 days. And every open vessel which has no covering bound upon it is unclean.
We have to consider just how strict all of the ordinances of the Old Testament were. And I don't think we consider how much work would have to be done. Do you? I need especially sisters. I want you to pay attention to verse 15. And every open vessel which has no covering abound upon it is unclean. That means you got to throw out all your pots. Man, you throw away a sister pot. Bro, I watched Athalia come in here one day because somebody got that Dutch pot. Where's me Dutch pot? Who got me Dutch pot? Hey, bro, I'm talking about it was about to get ugly if didn't nobody give her Dutch pot. Now think about, you got to throw away her Dutch pot. You're going to have a hard night, my brother. You throw away your wife's Dutch pot, it's going to get ugly. And think about it, every time something unclean, you got to throw that stuff away. You know how much stuff you're going to have to keep getting? Go ahead.
Verse 16. And whosoever touches one that is slain with a sword in the open fields, or a dead body, or a bone of a man, or a grave, shall be unclean 7 days. And for an unclean person they shall take of the ashes of the burnt heifer of purification for sin, and running water shall be put thereto in a vessel. And a clean person shall take hyssop, and dip it in the water, and sprinkle it upon the tent, and upon all the vessels, and upon the persons that were there, and upon him that touched a bone, or one slain, or one dead, or a grave.
Now, in this is found two things, though. When you read this, you find out what the Jewish are supposed to be doing, since they don't believe in the Mashiach. So, because they're not going to do this, they had to find themselves another law. This is where you find the hypocrite at. So you need to go through this. Because those that don't believe in the Messiah, they still are supposed to be going according to the Torah. You go in this stuff and you watch them and you watch all the things that they don't do while telling everybody, we're the holy people. Where you get that stuff from? So it was a gradual switch They went from the Torah to a writing about the Torah. Now that writing was said to be just as holy as if God said it himself. So now they deal with the Talmud, which is not the law, but somebody's interpretation of what they thought it meant. And it has all other types of things in it that are not in here. Go ahead.
And the clean person shall sprinkle upon the unclean on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day. And on the 7th day he shall purify himself, and wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and shall be clean at even.
Once again, see, this is how Yahweh take care of the liars and hypocrites. He say the stuff so much that it's going to be hard to gainsay him. How many times have we heard in one chapter, even. So when somebody come tell you, they like, you are from the devil. You need to be, so that you won't feel some kind of way. Because see, some of y'all just like, well, I don't want to hurt nobody's feelings. So I don't want to say that. No, you are of your father the devil, and of your father's works you will do. Because we read over and over, even. For you to come to somebody and say, well, according to the word of the light from Enoch, then this should be daytime. Man, get that out of here. Then that means Moshe had to be lying every time. Even. You know how many lies he had to have told? And when you agree with them, you have now then agreed that Moshe has told a lie in every chapter. He had to tell about 15 to 20 in this one. Then you want to go and present yourself before Yahweh while saying basically, oh, by the way, your servant's a liar. But where my salvation at again? Right. Go ahead.
But the man that shall be unclean and shall not purify himself, that soul shall be cut off from among the congregation. Because he has defiled the sanctuary of Yah.
He has defiled the sanctuary of Yahweh. Now, that was naturally an Old Testament. Don't think that you can't defile the sanctuary spiritually. Don't think you can't. Go ahead.
The water of separation has not been sprinkled upon him. He is unclean. And it shall be a perpetual statute unto them, that he that sprinkleth the water of separation shall wash his clothes. And he that touches the water of separation shall be unclean until even. And whatsoever the unclean person touches shall be unclean. And the soul that touches it shall be unclean until even.
So then we have all of these things, these ordinances about purification. Now let's go to John chapter 13. Yohanan chapter 13. And we're going to start that at verse 1. So we read all of these things about the Passover, about the purification, and you see all of the things that had to be done. First of all, you got several individuals that have to take place, that have to be within this purification. Because it's not like, you can just go get you a red heifer yourself, set it on fire, and you cool. No, it's several individuals that are included in this process for you to end up getting the things to present this water of separation, and then do what you need to do with that. So Yohanan chapter 13, and let's start that at verse 1.
Now before the feast of the Passover, when Yahshua knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end.
Right. Now, Yahshua know what job he has to do. He understood what job he had to do from day one. But understanding how man reacts and just the anger that man has against things that they don't understand. Hey, he asked his father, is there any other way? Must I do this? Because those people not understanding that they are torturing their maker. But what happened is, all flesh can see his flesh. Only those of the spirit were able to see who he was. The flesh just seen another man. That's all they seen. In the same way today, some people are able to see things of the spirit, and all some people see is another man. John the Baptist, they asked him, "Are you Elijah?" He said, "No, I ain't no Elijah. I'm just here to, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do." They asked Yeshua. He said, "Yeah, he was Elijah." He didn't even know who he was and what his job was. He didn't worry about none of that. He just did his job. He didn't worry about what title he was called or who were you spiritually. Where do you fit in the great cosmos? Yeah. Man, I ain't got time for all that. Look, I'm finna put that dude right there in that water. That's what I'm finna do. We'll worry about all of that other stuff later. Go ahead.
And supper being ended, the devil having now put into the heart of Yehudas Iscariot, Simeon's son, to betray him.
Right. So now the spirit, this demon has not entered into him and was not there the entire time. This spirit has now entered into him. Go ahead.
Yahshua, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands and that he was come from Elohim and went to Elohim, he rises from supper and laid aside his garments and took a towel and girded himself. After that, he pours water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded.
So now keep in your mind all of the things that had to happen for purification in the Old Testament. Now witness purification in the New Testament. Go ahead.
Then cometh he to Simeon Peter, and Cephas says unto him, Adonai, does you wash my feet? Yahshua answered and said unto him, What I do you knoweth not now, but you shall know hereafter.
Right. And this is, something that they, would not have been comfortable with. They walking around in, dusty parts of the earth and sandals, them some rough looking feet. You know what I'm saying? Them things look like leather. You know what I'm talking about? They didn't have no Dr. Scholl's now. So, go ahead.
Cephas says unto him, You shall never wash my feet. Yahshua answered him, If I wash you not, you have no part with me. Simeon Peter says unto him, Adonai, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Yahshua says to him, He that is washed needs not save to wash his feet. He is clean every whit, and you are clean, but not all.
Right, because he know that there's still, no matter what we do to this one individual, they ain't never going to get clean. But we going to, but this is the cleaning process. But all they had to do was wash one another's feet. Look at how much difference it was. Go get the red heifer, got to be without spot. Sacrifice it, burn it, get the ashes. One person take the ashes here, another one take this part here, another one go to this part, and every last one of y'all got to wash and change your clothes each time. Wash your feet. Go ahead.
For he knew who should betray him. Therefore he said, You're not all clean.
See, he had a job to do. And because he was amongst them, but he really wasn't amongst them, so he was more like, and I explain this to people, Yahweh has servants. Those are company men and women. They work for the company. Then he got them independent contractors. They just in to do a job. And when they done with that job, it's time for them to go. Judas was an independent contractor because the whole time he working for himself. He not working with them and he not working for Yahweh. He's working for himself. And every turn, he's trying to find out what he can do to benefit him. And if you pay attention, you'll see him float in and out of here the whole time. Every work that they done, just pause and look back. Every work that they've done was for themselves. Just sit. My elder used to say, just sit down, keep your mouth shut, and your eyes and ears open, and you might learn something. See, some of us can't learn that because we're too busy talking when we ought to be listening. You can tell somebody missing something. Be like, hey, shh, shh. Now we can figure that out when it's a television show. See, when it's a television show and somebody come in and they talking, hush, I'm missing part of the thing. That was important. Baby, rewind that. Rewind. I done missed something. And came in here talking. But see, we do the same thing when spiritual things are happening and we don't know it. And I'm sitting there watching a situation and one person is spiritually giving up what they're dealing with and the other person talking. And I'm sitting there like, if you would be quiet, you would really understand who you got in front of you. But we so busy. Stop talking. Listen. They are telling you what's in their heart and you're not paying attention. My elder used to say, when somebody show you who they are, believe them. Go ahead.
Verse 12. So after he had washed their feet and had taken his garments and was set down again, he said unto them, Know you what I have done to you? You call me master and Adonai, and you say, well, for so I am. If I then, your Adonai and master, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet.
Right. You also ought to purify one another. Go ahead.
For I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Adonai, neither is he that is sent greater than he that sent him. If you know these things, happy are you if you do them.
Happy are you if you do them. Knowing them is one thing. Doing them is something altogether different. Because a lot of times people love to go around and brag about what they know. That's interesting. But let's talk about what you do.
Well, I know all kind of goodness. I know some goodness.
All right, well, show me some.
Oh, well, I ain't got none with me right now. You know, I ain't got no goodness with me right at this, particular moment.
Right. Read.
I speak not of you all. I know whom I have chosen, but that the scripture may be fulfilled, he that eats bread with me has lifted up his heel against me. Now I tell you before it comes, that when it is come to pass, you may believe that I am he.
Right. But this is a very, very uncomfortable position even for the Mashiach. Because when you tell people some things before it has happened, this is when they come against you sometimes the most. Because they don't think that what you say is valid. Sometimes some people got to end up on their deathbed to realize what you said was valid. And if they would actually hearken, they could avoid the deathbed. Go ahead, bro.
Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that receives whomsoever I send receives me, and he that received me receive him that sent me. When Yahshua had thus said, he was troubled in spirit, and testified and said, Verily, verily, I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me. Then the disciples looked one on another, doubting of whom he spake. Now there was leaning on Yahshua's bosom one of his disciples, whom Yahshua loved. Simeon Peter therefore beckoned to him, that he should ask who it should be of whom he spake. He then lying on Yahshua's breast says unto him, Adonai, who is it? Yahshua answered, He it is to whom I shall give a sop when I have dipped it. And when he had dipped the sop, he gave it to Yehudas Iscariot, the son of Simeon. And after the sop, Satan entered into him. Then said Yahshua unto him, That you doeth, do it quickly.
Right, you got a job to do. Run, demon, go. Go, demon, go do it. Hurry up. Go, demon, run fast. That demon got a job to do. And the demon will use any available body within the congregation that it has access to. You ever heard that term? You're only as strong as your weakest link. So it don't matter how strong your strong link is. It matter how weak your weak link is. That's what a chain break. See, a chain ain't nothing but a bunch of circles put together. And if one of them circles is weak, there go the chain. The chain is now in two pieces. All because of that one weak link. He knew where his weak link was. So he knew exactly which one the devil was going to use. See, when you know something, you begin to know how it's going to work. So I know enough about the adversary, the devil, that's the one he going to get right there. Because that one right there, he got a little something in his spirit that allows him to be used. That's the one he going to use right there. He already knew. Go ahead.
Now no man at the table knew for what intent he spake this unto him. For some of them thought, because Yehudis had the bag, that Yahshua had said unto him, by those things that we have need of against the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. He then, having received the sop, went immediately out, and it was night.
Right. So we're talking about a thief, and instead of kicking him out, Yahshua gave the thief the job of holding the money bag. He gave him even more opportunity to be a betrayer. Because it was a job that needed to be done. And if he had replaced him before the job was finished, then he'd have to lose another of those disciples. See, some things are ugly, but they got to be what they got to be. Somebody was going to have to betray Yahshua. And if he moved Yehudis before that job was done, then we'd be reading about a whole nother one that was lost. Go ahead.
Therefore, when he was gone out, Yahshua said, now is the Son of Man glorified, and Elohim is glorified in him. If Elohim be glorified in him, Elohim shall also glorify him in himself, and shall straightway glorify him. Little children, yet a little while, and I am with you. You shall seek me, and as I said unto the Yehudis, whether I go, you cannot come. So now I say to you, a new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another, as I have loved you.
Now, how did he love us? He gave up everything for us. Go ahead.
That you also love one another. By this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love one to another.
Right. Let's go to our 2 Chronicles chapter 29. So then we look at these things, and we see that it does matter as to how we approach unto Yahweh, our Elohim. But then there will be situations and circumstances that we are not able to do all of the things that we are supposed to do. But we have to make sure that we are not the situation and the circumstance. You can't be the situation and then be granted reprieve because of you. And you caused it. Knowing what it is we're supposed to be doing, knowing what it is, what time we're supposed to be doing some things. There was, when you'll read in the New Testament, there were certain times where they were asking Saul to either stay or do something. He's like, no, I gotta go. I must by all means keep this feast at Jerusalem. So look here, I'm gonna do a few things and it's time for me to go. I got somewhere to be. I can't stay here. As much as he loved his work and he put his life in it, hey, I gotta go. I'm gonna be here for a little while, but then I'm out. 2 Chronicles chapter 29, and let's start that at verse 1.
Hezekiah began to reign when he was 25 years old, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem.
Now, understanding that they are going to be, that they have a job coming to them, and understanding that they have to present themselves or have to be ready. But you have to look at some. Hezekiah, some of these kings and how young they were when they began to reign. Have you looked at the mind state of a 25-year-old today? If I look up and a 25-year-old is the king, Yahweh, just kill me now. I just kill me now. We trying to work, they on Twitter, you know what I'm saying? The kingdom being attacked, they taking pictures of themselves. Man. 25 years old. Go ahead.
And his mother's name was Abiah, the daughter of Zechariah. And he did that which was right in the sight of Yahweh, according to all that David his father had done. He in the first year of his reign, in the first month, opened the doors of the house of Yahweh and repaired them. And he brought in the priests and the Levites and gathered them together into the east street and said unto them, Hear me, you Levites. Sanctify now yourselves and sanctify the house of Yahweh Elohim of your fathers and carry forth the filthiness out of the holy place.
Right. Now, this is a 25-year-old now setting things that were done wrong. He's setting these things right. Get all the filthiness out of the house. First of all, they got to understand what's clean and what's not. For him to go in and say, get the filthy stuff out of here. Go ahead.
For our fathers have trespassed and done that which was evil in the eyes of Yahweh our Elohim, and have forsaken him, and have turned away their faces from the habitation of Yahweh, and turned their backs. Also they have shut up the doors of the porch, and put out the lamps, and have not burnt incense, nor offered burnt offerings in the holy place unto Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, Wherefore the anger of Yahweh was upon Yehudah and Jerusalem, and he has delivered them to trouble, to astonishment, and to hissing, as you see with your eyes. For, lo, our fathers have fallen by the sword, and our sons and our daughters and our wives are in captivity for this.
Right. We have had to endure all of these things because we have not walked in Yahweh's word the way we are supposed to. Go ahead.
Now it is in mine heart to make a covenant with Yahweh Elohim of Israel, that his fierce anger may turn away from us. My sons, be not now negligent, for Yahweh has chosen you to stand before him, to serve him, and that you should minister unto him and burn incense. Then the Levites arose, Mahathath the son of Amasaiah, and Yoel the son of Azariah, of the sons of the Kohathites, and of the sons of Merari, Kish the son of Abdii, and Azariah the son of Yahiel, and of the Gershonites, Joah the son of Zimmah, and Eden the son of Joah, and of the sons of Elizaphan, Shimei, and Yeiel, and of the sons of Asaph, Zechariah, and Mattaniah.
Jump to verse 15.
And they gathered their brethren, and sanctified themselves, and came according to the commandment of the king, and by the words of Yahweh, to cleanse the house of Yahweh. And the priests went into the inner part of the house of Yahweh, to cleanse it, and brought out all the uncleanness that they found in the temple of Yah, into the court of the house of Yah, and the Levites took it, to carry it out abroad into the brook Kidron. Now they began on the first day of the first month to sanctify, and on the 8th day of the month came they to the porch of Yahweh. So they sanctified the house of Yahweh in 8 days, and in the 16th day of the first month they made an end. Then they went into Hezekiah the king, and said, We have cleansed all the house of Yahweh, and the altar of burnt offering, with all the vessels thereof, and the showbread table, with all the vessels thereof.
All right. So, understanding these days then, of what they're doing, what is it that they did not do? Mana mana do 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 do. Mana mana do 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 do. Do 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 do. Passover. First month. 14th day at even. They can't do that because they're cleaning the nasty place. That could not be done. See, certain things now. See, certain things ought to pop up in your head. First month. Y'all just going on first month. Yeah. Okay, 8 days. Well, now another 8 days. It didn't. That then. See, you got to start having this thing where automatically. Wait a minute. First month, the 16th day. Wait a minute. Didn't they miss something on the 14th day? See, you got to start getting to that stuff. Start kicking into you automatically. Even without reading it. When you start reading certain dates. You know how some of y'all act about your anniversary. Wait a minute. Is it the 16th already? Did we miss the 15th? No, you didn't. You scoundrel. Right. Right.
the 16th day, they missed 2 things.
Yeah, boy. Go ahead,
Verse
bro.
19. Moreover, all the vessels which King Ahaz in his reign did cast away in his transgression have we prepared and sanctified, and behold, they are before the altar of Yahweh. Then Hezekiah the king rose early and gathered the rulers of the city and went up to the house of Yahweh. And they brought 7 bullocks, and 7 rams, and 7 lambs, and 7 he-goats for a sin offering for the kingdom, and for the sanctuary, and for Yehudah. And he commanded the priests, the sons of Aaron, to offer them unto the altar of Yah. So they killed the bullocks, and the priests received the blood, and sprinkled it on the altar. Likewise, when they had killed the rams, they sprinkled the blood upon the altar. They killed also the lambs, and they sprinkled the blood upon the altar. And they brought forth the he-goats for the sin offering before the king and the congregation, and they laid their hands upon them. And the priests killed them, and they made reconciliation with their blood upon the altar, to make an atonement for all Israel. For the king commanded that the burnt offering and the sin offering should be made for all Israel. And he set the Levites in the house of Yahweh with cymbals, with psalteries, and with harps, according to the commandment of Dawid and of Elohim the king's seer, and Nathan the prophet. For so was the commandment of Yahweh by his prophets.
Okay. There's some things that I think, we read and we kind of go past, so I don't think a lot of the things are really understood like that. Do the sisters understand what kind of grace it is that they are able to be in the choir? Do you understand that that's a priest's job? Do you understand that those would be all from the priesthood? You understand that there are no women priests? Sometimes I don't think people get that in, how serious some of these things were. The women would be in the outer court. And, what's interesting is, sometimes, especially when people first get in the word, it is one of the things that throws them that, them and they boo-boo can't sit right beside each other and hold hands and read the scripture. Because they don't understand, if we was in our land, you wouldn't even be able to see your boo-boo. You be looking at a head.
I think that's his head right there, down there. The little one that point up from the back, that look like his.
Right. Right. Read, bro.
Hard to tell in a sea of head coverings.
Yeah, hey. A woman can tell her boo-boo.
She's like, oh, I know that head right there. Look like a little peanut with the hair missing on the side. That's it. Go ahead.
And the Levites stood with the instruments of Dawid, and the priests with the trumpets. And Hezekiah commanded to offer the burnt offering upon the altar. And when the burnt offering began, the song of Yahweh began also with the trumpets and with the instruments ordained by Dawid, king of Israel. And all the congregation worshipped, and the singers sang, and the trumpeters sounded. And all this continued until the burnt offering was finished. And when they had made an end of offering, the king and all that were present with him bowed themselves and worshipped. Moreover, Hezekiah the king and the princes commanded the Levites to sing praise unto Yahweh with the words of Dawid and of Asaph the seer. And they sang praises with gladness, and they bowed their heads and worshipped.
And consider that it is the men, the Levite, the priest's job to sing before Yahweh. Do we understand, even as men, how important that charge is? Read.
Then Hezekiah answered and said, Now you have consecrated yourselves unto Yahweh. Come near and bring sacrifices and thank offerings into the house of Yahweh. And the congregation brought in sacrifices and thank offerings, and as many as were of a free heart burnt offerings.
As many as were of a free heart brought things for the burnt offerings. And you'll find that that free heart thing don't run too easy up in Israel. See, we get a have gotten accustomed to making the poor pay more while the rich skate through. And because we've learned so much of that in the daughter of Babylon, we think it's normal. Not understanding that Yahweh is going to require it of us. Go ahead.
And the number of the burnt offerings which the congregation brought was 70 bullocks, and 100 rams, and 200 lambs. All these were for a burnt offering to Yahweh. And the consecrated things were 600 oxen and 3,000 sheep. But the priests were too few, so that they could not flay all the burnt offerings. Wherefore their brethren, the Levites, did help them till the work was ended, and until the other priests had sanctified themselves. For the Levites were more upright in heart to sanctify themselves than the priests.
So then you have, within the Levites, you have those of the houses that have other jobs. So it's not one of those things, and I remember first reading it, it said, okay, if they're Levites and they all priests. Yeah, but they have different jobs within the priesthood. All right, those that are of this family, these people work the incense. And their whole family are going to be working the incense. These people are at the door. Their whole family is going to be at the door. But then when you have people who haven't sanctified themselves, they haven't purified themselves, now the brother at the door doing the helping with the offering. Because the rest of the brothers ain't did what they're supposed to do. Go ahead.
And also the burnt offerings were in abundance, with the fat of the peace offerings and the drink offerings for every burnt offering. So the service of the house of Yahweh was set in order. And Hezekiah rejoiced, and all the people, that Elohim had prepared the people, for the thing was done suddenly.
All right. Go to next chapter.
And Hezekiah sent to all Israel and Yehudah, and wrote letters also to Ephraim and Manasseh, that they should come to the house of Yahweh at Jerusalem, to keep the Passover unto Yahweh Elohim of Israel. For the king had taken counsel, and his princes, and all the congregation in Jerusalem, to keep the Passover in the 2nd month.
Now, Hezekiah is telling them to keep the Passover in the 2nd month. Because the place was unclean in the 1st month. Go ahead.
You know, some people would have rushed and tried to, we got to keep it.
Right. And they would have kept it wrong. They would have kept it wrong had they tried to rush and keep it in an unclean state. Go ahead.
For they could not keep it at the time, because the priests had not sanctified themselves sufficiently, neither had the people gathered themselves together to Jerusalem. And the thing pleased the king and all the congregation. So they established a decree to make proclamation throughout all Israel, from Beersheba even to Dan, that they should come to keep the Passover unto Yahweh Elohim of Israel at Jerusalem, for they had not done it of a long time in such sort as it was written. So the post went with the letters from the king and his princes throughout all Israel and Yehudah, and according to the commandment of the king, saying, You children of Israel, turn again unto Yahweh Elohim of Abraham, Esaac, and Israel, and he will return to the remnant of you that are escaped out of the hand of the king of Assyria. And be not you like your fathers and like your brethren, which trespassed against Yahweh Elohim of their fathers, who therefore gave them up to desolation, as you see. Now be you not stiff-necked as your fathers were, but yield yourselves unto Yahweh, and enter into his sanctuary, which he has sanctified forever, and serve Yahweh your Elohim, that the fierceness of his anger may turn away from you.
Right. These are the things that the nations don't want us to know. Because each one of these times, he's saying, all right, pay attention to the stuff that we're doing, and we can cause the fierce anger of Yahweh to go away from us. We want the fierce anger of Yahweh to go away. We just don't want to change what we're doing. We still want to do everything that we want to do. We still want to do it how we want to do it, but we want our lives to be better. I want this to magically clear up. I just ain't going to do nothing to help it. That's the problem. And each one of these times he's telling us, oh, you want this to clear up? I can show you how to clear it up. Go ahead.
For if you turn again unto Yahweh, your brethren and your children shall find compassion before them that led them captive.
What? Wait a minute. You shall find compassion amongst the strangers who hate you. If you do what you're supposed to do, He will even make the strangers deal with you better than they would normally deal with you. If you haven't encountered some of those situations where you'll go to people, and these are people, by the look of it, they should hate your kind. See, I've ran up on that several times. That these supposed to be the biggest rednecks in town. They hate all black people. I get there and they be like, you know what? Boy, I like you. I don't know why. I don't know why I like you, man. Just get warmth in my heart when I see you. Hey, Yahweh got there before I got there and told him, this boy right here, leave him alone. But that happened when you do what you're supposed to do. Go ahead.
So that they shall come again into this land. For Yahweh Elohim is gracious and merciful, and will not turn away his face from you, if you return unto him. So the post passed from city to city through the country of Ephraim and Manasseh, even to Zebulun. But they laughed them to scorn, and mocked them. Nevertheless, divers of Asher and Manasseh and of Zebulun humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem. Also in Yehuda, the hand of Elohim was to give them one heart to do the commandment of the king and of the princes, by the word of Yahweh. And there assembled at Jerusalem much people to keep the feast of unleavened bread in the 2nd month, a very great congregation. And they arose and took away the altars that were in Jerusalem, and all the altars for incense took they away, and cast them into the brook Kidron. Then they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the 2nd month, and the priests and the Levites were ashamed, and sanctified themselves, and brought in the burnt offerings into the house of Yahweh.
Then they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the 2nd month. And the priests and the Levites were ashamed. All them people who didn't do what they were supposed to do. But do we ever get to that shame part? See, the shame part make you change. See, that's what leaven does. It makes something rise so it's puffed up. When stuff puffed up, it don't get shameful. See, it's too proud to feel shame. Shame is a step to change. But when folks so proud, they can be proud and wrong and stand like they right. Don't never see their portion of it, but they can see everything that somebody has done to them. But they will never see what they've done to anybody else. Leaven. Puffed up. That's what we're trying to remove. It's more than just that stuff that's written on those labels. It's more than just that stuff in your cabinets. You got some cabinets in here. That leaven has to come out of them. Shame is a good part. Shame brings forth change. Go ahead.
And they stood in their place after their manner, according to the law of Moshe, the man of Elohim. The priests sprinkled the blood, which they received of the hand of the Levites. For there were many in the congregation that were not sanctified. Therefore the Levites had the charge of the killing of the Passovers for everyone that was not clean, to sanctify them unto Yahweh. For a multitude of the people, even many of Ephraim and Manasseh, Issachar and Zebulun, had not cleansed themselves, yet did they eat the Passover otherwise than it was written. But Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, the good Yahweh pardon everyone.
Right. So now another man's prayer has to set them at right because they did something that they had no business doing. But it took his prayer to cover them. Go ahead.
The good Yahweh pardon everyone that prepares his heart to seek Elohim, Yahweh Elohim of his fathers, though he be not cleansed according to the purification of the sanctuary. And Yahweh hearkened to Hezekiah and healed the people.
Yahweh hearkened unto Hezekiah. See, the people done already put themselves in the situation. See, this is why, you know, when it comes down to a household or a congregation of people, sometimes one person may make themselves too filthy. Yahweh ain't gonna hear their prayer. Then that's when one of us have to pray for them. And who knows, you may get to a point where you have gotten yourself too filthy and somebody got to pray for you. Go ahead.
And the children of Israel that were present at Jerusalem kept the feast of unleavened bread 7 days with great gladness. And the Levites and the priests praised Yahweh day by day, singing with loud instruments unto Yahweh. And Hezekiah spake comfortably unto all the Levites that taught the good knowledge of Yahweh. And they did eat throughout the feast 7 days, offering peace offerings and making confession to Yahweh Elohim of their fathers. And the whole assembly took counsel to keep other 7 days, and they kept other 7 days with gladness. For Hezekiah king of Yehudah did give to the congregation 1,000 bullocks and 7,000 sheep. And the princes gave to the congregation 1,000 bullocks and 10,000 sheep. And a great number of priests sanctified themselves.
So just like Israel, let's just keep the party going. You know what I'm saying? I mean, let's just keep the party. Look at all this stuff we done got here. We got to do something with this. Keep the party going. That's just like Israel, man. Go ahead.
And all the congregation of Yehudah with the priests and the Levites, and all the congregation that came out of Israel, and the strangers that came out of the land of Israel, and that dwelt in Yehudah, rejoiced. So there was great joy in Jerusalem. For since the time of Shlomo the son of David, king of Israel, there was not the like in Jerusalem. Then the priests, the Levites, arose and blessed the people, and their voice was heard, and their prayer came up to his holy dwelling place, even unto heaven.
All right, let's go to Joshua chapter 3. Joshua chapter 3, and we're going to start that at verse 1.
And Joshua rose up early in the morning, and they removed from Shittim, and came to Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they passed over. And it came to pass after 3 days that the officers went through the host, and they commanded the people, saying, When you see the ark of the covenant of Yahweh your Elohim, and the priests the Levites bearing it, then you shall remove from your place and go after it. Yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits by measure.
Now, you're going to do this thing, yet there shall be a space between you and it. See, there's a way that you have to deal with holy things. And if you deal with it incorrectly, it can cause you some issues. Go ahead.
Come not near unto it, that you may know the way by which you must go, for you have not passed this way there heretofore.
That means you got to follow further enough back to receive your instruction. Go ahead.
And Yahshua said unto the people, Sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow Yahweh will do wonders among you.
So, because you're now about to receive the direction of Yahweh, you need to sanctify yourself so that you can be amongst something holy and be directed by it. Go ahead.
And Yahshua spake unto the priests, saying, Take up the ark of the covenant, and pass over before the people. And they took up the ark of the covenant, and went before the people. And Yahweh said unto Yahshua, This day will I begin to magnify you in the sight of all Israel.
Now this is very important. This day will I begin to magnify you in the sight of all Israel. Go ahead.
That they may know that as I was with Moshe, so I will be with you.
Right, because you know Israel will test you.
I mean, where your staff at? So you gonna plot the waters or something? I mean, you sure ain't glowing. I mean, I'm looking right in your eyes. So how we know you was supposed to be the next dude? I mean, you went into the tent a lot of the times. I mean, you know, when he was in there talking with Yahweh and everything. I mean, we know you was in there, but how we know you that dude? You know.
Understand? Now these same people that tested Moshe constantly. They would see the man do a miracle and test him immediately following.
You done with this? Okay, let's kill him.
What? So you don't think that they were going to have a problem with Joshua? Yahweh already know. Look here, I'm going to have to magnify you in front of these people. You know your folk now. You know your folk. So let me do a little something here so they'll know you that guy. Because if not, these people going to kill you, bro. And these your folk. We're not talking about some strange land of people who going to come in. And, no. I need to do this in front of your folk so they'll know that I'm with you. Go ahead.
And you shall command the priests that bear the ark of the covenant, saying, when you are come to the brink of the water of Jordan, you shall stand still in Jordan.
Now, you see the thing here, and this is part of what you have to learn about order. In verse 8, you shall command the priest that bear the ark of the covenant. See, if Yahweh goes directly to them, order is lost. See, that's the part about order that people don't see. No. I'm going to tell you, but you have to tell them. Or order is going to be lost. Go ahead.
You know, when you was talking about him having problems with the people, they were more familiar with him than they were with Moshe.
They did see him a lot.
I mean, because you grew up as a child amongst them.
Yep.
Moshe was separated from them.
Yep. But you know, sometimes, brother, familiarity breeds contempt.
That's what I say.
The more familiar you are with somebody, the more problems sometimes they have with you.
Yep.
Why couldn't Yeshua do miracles in Cana of Galilee? They said, you know, they were familiar with him, so they didn't believe on him. So he couldn't do many miracles there.
Man, don't I know? Didn't you go to Galilee High or something like that? Don't I know you? Man, you ain't no savior, man. Get on out of here.
I know you. Right. They couldn't believe nothing that he did. He wouldn't do no miracles there. Let's go somewhere else. Go ahead.
Verse 9. And Yahshua said unto the children of Israel, come hither and hear the words of Yahweh your Elohim. And Yahshua said, hereby you shall know that the living Elohim is among you, and that he will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Hivites, and the Perizzites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Jebusites. Behold, the ark of the covenant of Elohim of all the earth passes over before you into Jordan. Now therefore take you 12 men out of the tribe of Israel, out of every tribe a man. And it shall come to pass, as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests that bear the ark of Yahweh, the Adonai of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of Jordan, that the waters of Jordan shall be cut off from the waters that come down from above, and they shall stand upon an heap. And it came to pass, when the people removed from their tents to pass over Jordan, and the priests bearing the ark of the covenant before the people, and as they that bear the ark were come on to Jordan, and the feet of the priests that bear the ark were dipped in the brim of the water, for Jordan overfloweth all his banks all the time of the harvest, that the waters which came down from above stood and rose up upon an heap very far from the city Adam, that is, besides Zaratan. And those that came down toward the sea of the plain, even the salt sea, failed and were cut off, and the people passed over right against Jericho. And the priests that bear the ark of the covenant of Yahweh stood firm on dry ground in the midst of Jordan. And all the Israelites passed over on dry ground, until all the people were passed clean over Jordan.
So then you have to pay attention to the instruction. They were told first to stay behind it. Now it's dipped in the water. Now they continue moving. Keep going.
And it came to pass, when all the people were clean passed over Jordan, that Yahweh spake unto Yahshua, saying, take you 12 men out of the people, out of every tribe a man, and command you them, saying, take you hence out of the midst of Jordan, out of the place where the priest's feet stood firm, 12 stones, and you shall carry them over with you, and leave them in the lodging place where you shall lodge this night. Then Yahshua called the 12 men, whom he had prepared of the children of Israel, out of every tribe a man. And Yahshua said unto them, pass over before the ark of Yahweh your Elohim into the midst of Jordan, and take you up every man of you a stone upon his shoulder, according unto the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, that this may be a sign among you, that when your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what mean you by these stones? Then you shall answer them, that the waters of Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of Yahweh, when it passed over Jordan. The waters of Jordan were cut off, and these stones shall be for a memorial unto the children of Israel forever.
And you have to understand that, you know, there are various things that we have encountered that are supposed to be signs amongst us. We have to remember that the Sabbath was given as a sign between us and Yahweh our Elohim. And when you go to reading in the Apocrypha and things like that, you'll find out that this is the first thing that the Euro Gentiles wanted to change. They wanted to erase the sign between us and our Elohim. Do away with the Sabbath. Do not keep this Sabbath. Do what we want you to do. So then when we look at these things, these are signs between us and Yahweh our Elohim, and the nations want those things destroyed. They don't want you to be able to go back to these things and restore who you are with Yahweh. Go ahead.
And the children of Israel did so as Yahshua commanded, and took up 12 stones out of the midst of Jordan, as Yahweh spake unto Yahshua, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, and carried them over with them unto the place where they lodged, and laid them down there. And Yahshua set up 12 stones in the midst of Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests which bear the ark of the covenant stood, and they are there unto this day.
And that church up there by you called 12 Stone Church? And we have people just taking bits and pieces of your culture and use it right in front of you. Go ahead.
For the priests which bear the ark stood in the midst of Jordan, until everything was finished that Yahweh commanded Yahshua to speak unto the people, according to all that Moshe commanded Yahshua. And the people hasted and passed over. And it came to pass, when all the people were clean passed over, that the ark of Yahweh passed over, and the priest in the presence of the people. And the children of Reuben and the children of Gad and half the tribe of Manasseh passed over armed before the children of Israel, as Moshe spoke unto them. About 40,000 prepared for war passed over before Yahweh unto battle to the plains of Jericho. On that day, Yahweh magnified Yahshua in the sight of all Israel, and they feared him.
Right. Don't think that those two things are not connected. On that day, Yahweh magnified Yahshua in the sight of all Israel, and they feared him. They feared him because they was able to see Yahweh do a miracle, and then they realized Yahweh is with him. So that means there's certain times when Yahweh wants to see what's really in somebody's heart, he won't let them see his power right away. Because, you know, we have a tendency to only respect those things that we have fear of. See, when the policeman walk up and he got a gun on his side, you know, a lot of people can straighten up then, you know, because they're looking, okay, he got a gun, he shoot you. But sometimes people walk up and they got a gun inside their shirt. You don't ever see it. Now, are you big and bold because you think you can take that person not knowing that they got 3 pistols and 4 clips? Because you don't see it. So now you don't know to be afraid. You don't know to respect that. Yahweh do the same thing. He'll hide his power just so he can see what's in somebody's heart. Go ahead.
And they feared him as they feared Moshe all the days of his life. And Yahweh spake unto Yahshua, saying, Command the priests that bear the ark of the testimony that they come up out of Jordan. Yahshua therefore commanded the priests, saying, Come you up out of Jordan. And it came to pass, when the priests that bear the ark of the covenant of Yahweh were come up out of the midst of Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet were lifted up onto the dry land, that the waters of Jordan returned onto their place, and flowed over all his banks as they did before.
So, as the ark went in, they went behind it, the ark comes in, the waters dry up, they all walk all the way over, then the ark comes up out of it. There's instructions. Now, what if the ark goes and just keep on going? All them people behind gonna drown. Instruction. Go ahead.
And the people came up out of Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and encamped in Gilgal, in the east border of Jericho. And those 12 stones which they took out of Jordan did Yahshua pitch in Gilgal. And he spake unto the children of Israel, saying, When your children shall ask their fathers in time to come, saying, What mean these stones? Then you shall let your children know, saying, Israel came over this Jordan on dry land. For Yahweh your Elohim dried up the waters of Jordan from before you, until you were passed over, as Yahweh your Elohim did to the Red Sea, which he dried up from before us, until we were gone over.
So then he gives Joshua something like he gave to Moshe so the people would learn to respect him. Go ahead.
That all the people of the earth might know the hand of Yahweh, that it is mighty, that you might fear Yahweh your Elohim forever. And it came to pass.
Yeah, keep going.
And it came to pass, when all the kings of the Amorites, which were on the side of Jordan westward, and all the kings of the Canaanites, which were by the sea, heard that Yahweh had dried up the waters of Jordan from before the children of Israel, until we were passed over, that their heart melted, neither was their spirit in them any more, because of the children of Israel.
Right. So then Yahweh is doing several things with one situation. He is learning or giving Israel the opportunity to learn to fear Yahshua and respect him as a leader. And at the same time, he's putting fear in all the other nations. Because don't think the other nations ain't thinking the same thing that Israel thinking. Well, you know, their leader gone. Remember the dude that cut off the water and everything? Oh, he dead. He gone. We're going to be able to wipe them out now. So Yahweh doing several things. Then they see the water cut off again. They be like, uh-oh, Yahweh with him too. Go ahead.
At that time Yahweh said unto Joshua, make you sharp knives, and circumcise again the children of Israel the second time. And Joshua made him sharp knives, and circumcised the children of Israel at the hill of the foreskins. And this is the cause why Joshua did circumcise all the people that came out of Egypt, that were males, even all the men of war, died in the wilderness by the way, after they came out of Egypt. Now all the people that came out were circumcised, but all the people that were born in the wilderness by the way, as they came forth out of Egypt, them they had not circumcised. For the children of Israel walked 4 years in the wilderness.
40
years in the wilderness, till all the people that were men of war, which came out of Egypt, were consumed, because they obeyed not the voice of Yahweh, unto whom Yahweh sware that he would not show them the land, which Yahweh sware unto their fathers that he would give us, a land that flows with milk and honey. And their children, whom he raised up in their stead, them Yahshua circumcised, for they were uncircumcised, because they had not circumcised them by the way. And it came to pass, when they had done circumcising all the people, that they abode in their places in the camp, till they were whole. And Yahweh said unto Joshua, this day have I rolled away the reproach of Egypt from off you, wherefore the name of this place is called Gilgal unto this day. And the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal, and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at even in the plains of Jericho. And they did eat of the old corn of the land on the morrow after the Passover, unleavened cakes and parched corn in the selfsame day. And the manna ceased on the morrow after they had eaten of the old corn of the land.
Right. And the manna ceased on the morrow after they had eaten of the old corn of the land. So after he circumcises the children of Israel again, then this manna ceased. Go ahead.
Neither have the children of Israel manna any more, but they did eat of the fruit of the land of Canaan that year. And it came to pass, when Joshua was by Jericho, that he lifted up his eyes and looked. And, behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went on to him, and said unto him, are you for us, or for our adversaries? And he said, no, but as a captain of the host of Yahweh am I now come.
Right.
And Joshua fell on his face to the earth, and did worship, and said unto him, what saith my master unto his servant? And the captain of Yahweh's host said unto Joshua, loose your shoe from off your foot, for the place whereon you standeth is holy. And Joshua did so.
Right. And what he saw was a man. He did not see a winged angelic creature that people always talk about. He saw a captain of the host. This is a warrior. He don't have a sword for no reason. This is the reason why we have to walk a certain way. You got angels fighting for us. And anything that we do to drive those angels away from us ends up costing us our lives. That's why we have to do things a certain way. Let's go to Exodus chapter 12. Exodus chapter 12, and we're going to read verses 43 through 51. Because although this part about the circumcision is important, we have to understand, even as there were grace periods given on other things, there's also a grace period given on this as well. Go ahead.
Verse 43. And Yahweh said unto Moshe and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof. But every man's servant that is bought for money, when you have circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. A foreigner and a hired servant shall not eat thereof.
So then you see from the beginning, once you circumcised the stranger, he was able to take a part in the Passover. It is interesting that, especially how people learn, a lot of times you hear from people from these other camps, and they're like, well, show me where these other people, the Gentiles or these other nations, can be accepted with Israel. There. That encompasses everybody from any nation. And this is Old Testament. This is not, because you have a lot of people teaching that they think that if they null and void the New Testament, they can then null and void any of the other nations from receiving salvation. No, that was there even in the Old. They were not given circumcision, but if they willingly took it, they were able to take part in every a part of Israel's holy days. Let him come on. Once he keep the Passover, he can keep everything after that. That was always open. This is not something that just became open later on. And I don't know how we missed that. Go ahead.
In one house shall it be eaten. You shall not carry forth aught of the flesh abroad out of the house, neither shall you break a bone thereof. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it. And when a stranger shall sojourn with you, and will keep the Passover to Yahweh, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof.
For no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. But what's interesting, and when a stranger shall sojourn with you and will keep the Passover, let all his males be circumcised. When you're talking about marking over the door with the blood of the lamb, that blood of the lamb protect everybody in the house. So how you gonna let the blood of the lamb go and protect a one part of the household and not the rest of the household? No. All the men got to come and take part in this if the blessing of Yahweh is going to be over that house. If you're going to be a stranger and enter into this, you need to bring all your males. Go ahead.
One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourns among you. Thus did all the children of Israel, as Yahweh commanded Moshe and Aaron, so did they. And it came to pass the selfsame day that Yahweh did bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt by their armies.
So then we see the ordinance of the circumcision. So now let's go and read in the New Testament. Let's go to Romans chapter 4, and we're going to read verses 1 through 12. Romans 4 and verses 1 through 12.
Verse 1. What shall we say then that Abraham our father, as pertaining to the flesh, has found? For if Abraham were justified by works, he has whereof to glory, but not before Elohim. For what saith the scripture? Abraham believed Elohim, and it was counted unto him for righteousness. Now to him that works is the reward not reckoned of grace, but of debt. But to him that worketh not, but to believeth on him that justifieth the ungodly, his faith is counted for righteousness. Even as David also describes the blessedness of the man unto whom Elohim imputeth righteousness without works.
Righteousness without works, without animal sacrifice. Okay? See, some people take that and not understanding what that means, they think, well, you see, I ain't got to do nothing. I ain't got to do no work. So then they really get confused when they go and read another part in the book where it says faith without works is dead. They were like, wait a minute. Faith without works, but then right here it says he's justified without works. You got to understand what it is they're talking about. That work described here is animal sacrifice. Which, because we ain't never done animal sacrifice, we don't understand how much work that is. That is not a game. That is some serious work. That something, first of all, has to die every time you do something wrong. I think that would get some people's attention. Especially if it's something we like. Because, you know, we get accustomed to our little animals. Go ahead.
Saying, blessed are they whose lawlessness is forgiven and whose sins are covered. Blessed is the man to whom the Adonai will not impute sin. Cometh this blessedness then upon the circumcision only, or upon the uncircumcision also? For we say that faith was reckoned to Abraham for righteousness. How was it then reckoned? When he was in circumcision or in uncircumcision?
Or in uncircumcision. Go ahead.
Not in circumcision, but in uncircumcision. And he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of righteousness of the faith which he had yet being uncircumcised, that he might be the father of all them that believe, though they be not circumcised.
So Abraham is still the father of the uncircumcised. Go ahead.
That righteousness might be imputed unto them also. And the father of circumcision to them who are not of the circumcision only, but who also walk in the steps of that faith of our father Abraham, which he had being yet uncircumcised.
Right. Now, that's something that we have to consider. Every time it mentions the circumcision, it's talking about the children of Israel. So it was automatically known that the children of Israel had to receive their circumcision. But then when you get to the children of Israel being spread all the way across the four corners of the globe, having to go through all of these captivities, then a lot of those things were lost among our people. Now, those are things that, especially in the end time, is going to have to be corrected. But Yahweh, if he has already granted this open door to the Euro Gentiles without circumcision, do you think he's going to hold Israel out for not being circumcised and we've been spread amongst the Gentiles? See, some things that we have to consider with a little bit of common sense as well. Let's go to Colossians chapter 2. And if that don't work, then we got the word that we can just keep going and we can read several things in several different places. Colossians chapter 2, and we're going to read verses 8 through 17.
Verse 8. Beware, lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after the anointed one.
Right. And people not understanding these holy days, they try to tell you that those are traditions of men. No, these are traditions of Yahweh. Know and understand the difference. See, the people who want to play the Sunday morning game, they try to run this game that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with the tradition of men. No. This came from Yahweh, our Elohim. We're not dealing with man's tradition. See, that's not what we're dealing with. Go ahead.
For in him dwelleth all the fullness of the Godhead bodily. And you are complete in him, which is the head of all principality and power, in whom also you are circumcised, with the circumcision made without hands.
So then there's another circumcision. There's a spiritual circumcision here. A circumcision performed without hands. Go ahead.
And putting off the body of the sins of the flesh by the circumcision of Yahshua, buried with him in baptism, wherein also you are risen with him through the faith of the operation of Elohim, who has raised him from the dead.
Right. Buried with him in baptism. Yet, some of the biggest congregations around don't do baptism. Then you got these traveling preachers who baptizing people and not even in the water. They directing baptism. Now dip yourself. Now stand up. Now roll around in it. What are you doing? Right. Playing with people's salvation. Going to see a Roman show like the circus. Now let me see somebody walk on the line up here. You got all the other shows up in here. Where your elephants and monkeys at? Because there's something seriously wrong when you got the one who's performing the baptism not even in the water. And they got a nice little reason why they not in there. But everything that I read, they was in there together. So it's some strange stuff going on. So even when you talk about some of these things, as we start, as we went over the thing that happened to the sister in one of those other congregations, and they got congregations all over the place. Not one of those people are baptized. Not one. So whereas some of the biggest things that are said about Hebrew Israelites, those people are not Hebrew Israelites. They ain't got a baptism to the first. Not even their leader. They're not buried with him in baptism. They don't have one. And they're not trying to get one. See, there are some that would be spiritually buried in baptism and they haven't even gotten their baptism. Why? Because they have intentions to do their baptism in their heart, but just hadn't made it. Go ahead.
Verse 13. And you, being dead in your sins and the uncircumcision of your flesh, has he quickened together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses, blotting out the handwriting of ordinances.
Ordinances. See, this is where Sunday morning gonna tell you that they took away the whole law. Because they don't read enough of the Old Testament to run into the word ordinance. So whenever they see ordinance, they throw it all in with all law. And now all of a sudden it's illegal for them to do anything. Because see, he nailed all the law to his cross. But let them catch a brother climbing out their window and they ticked off. What are you mad for? There ain't no more law. He should be able to go in there and take whatever he wants. There's some hypocrisy in that. Go ahead.
That was against us, which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way, nailing it to his cross. And having spoiled principalities and powers, he made a show of them openly, triumphing over them in it. Let no man therefore judge you in meat, or in drink, or in respect of an holy day, or of the new moon, or of the Sabbath days.
And we know the famous klepto quote that he put right here. He was teaching, and he stopped right there, saying, letting these people believe that you don't have to deal with any holy day, that you don't have to deal with any new. Check this out now. This is New Testament, and it's saying new moon. You go to some Jewish people and ask them about new moon and watch how they look at you. You ever seen a dog turn his head and just look at you? And the dog is like, what is wrong with you? Yeah, watch them look. Now they're supposed to be the holy people. Ask them about new moon and watch how they look at you. What's a new moon? Is that different from the old one? What is that? I don't know. New Testament. And it's talking about holy day, new moon, Sabbaths. And because a portion of this is read, you have people taking that and thinking that they understand it. But because he stopped there and he didn't read the next line, a lot of people were spiritually murdered by that teaching. Go ahead.
Which are a shadow of things to come.
Which are a shadow of things to come. That part he wouldn't read. And a lot of people were spiritually murdered. Not by what he read, but by what he didn't read. Go ahead.
But the body is of Yahshua.
But the body is of Yahshua. But let us hear the conclusion of this matter. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 10. Deuteronomy chapter 10. And we're going to read verses 12 through 16.
Verse 12. And now, Israel, what does Yahweh your Elohim require of you, but to fear Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your soul.
And now, Israel, what does Yahweh your Elohim require of you? These are things from the beginning. But to fear Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart and with all your soul. And you can watch people and tell that they don't serve with all their heart and all their soul. This is what Yahweh requires of us. Go ahead.
To keep the commandments of Yahweh. Excuse me.
And people say the commandments, we ain't got to worry about that no more. See? But you're going to find some correlation between what we just read in the New Testament and then what's right here in the Old and what's always been here. Go ahead.
To keep the commandments of Yahweh and his statutes, which I command you this day for your good. Behold, the heaven and the heaven of heaven is Yahweh's your Elohim. The earth also, with all that therein is. Only Yahweh had a delight in your fathers to love them, and he chose their seed after them, even you above all people, as it is this day.
And this is something that the nations have a problem with. That old God was racist. He chose one group of people over another group of people. So they don't like that. Go ahead.
Circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart, and be no more stiff-necked.
Right. Yahweh wanted us from the beginning to have a circumcised heart. And it is the very thing that he says in the New Testament. If you walk with your whole heart, if you keep these commandments, if you do these things, then you have a circumcised heart. That is what the best part of the circumcision is. The circumcision of the heart. You can have a circumcised flesh and still be just as unruly. So, ultimately, as it is written, no one uncircumcised in heart or flesh shall enter into his sanctuary. That's something that's going to have to be done at some point before we enter into that setup that he's going to set up. So we have a grace period, but those things are commanded of the children of Israel. They are not commanded of the other nations. And we have to understand that. It is why it caused a schism in between the brothers in the New Testament, because they were walking around telling all the other nations, you cannot receive this unless you be receive the circumcision as commanded by Moshe. And the other brothers had to go in there, man, we didn't tell them to teach that. So if they had to deal with other Jews or other Israelites, shall I say, teaching things that were strange amongst the people, what make us so different? Most of the problems that we deal with is other people like us that's teaching it. The Christians don't know enough to teach this wrong. So I ain't worried about them misteaching it. They don't know enough. What we just did was 7-8 months of Christian teaching. And that's if you go to all the forums and tent revivals and everything. Backdoor meetings, that's everything. Okay? So I ain't worried about them. This is other Hebrew Israelites teaching this stuff wrong. Purposely. See, some of them you just think, okay, well maybe, can you really be upset if somebody don't understand and they taught some things that they didn't understand and then later on they understood? No, the stuff that they're doing purposely. This is not about not understanding. This is about making a choice that they're going to deceive as many people as humanly possible. And just because somebody says something with some kind of zeal, don't make it true. Just because they can look you in your directly in your eyes and lie, don't mean it's true. And it's something serious when somebody's salvation is on the line. So let us consider that as we get closer and closer to the holy days of Yahweh our Elohim and understand that these days mean something to him. And if we love him, then the things that mean something to him should mean something to us. You don't just love somebody or love something, but not be interested in any of the things that they are interested in. That's all that we're going to do for today. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.